All right. Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Robbie Basel Show. Of course, I'm your host, Robbie Basel, as seen on every podcast so far, episode number 20, which is crazy for me to say, but I don't need to give you guys some spiel intro and all that other stuff that other podcasts or YouTube people say. You guys are here for the facts, and I'm here to tell you the truth. But we get to talk about that in a little bit about running backs, which I know a lot of you guys want to hear about. But today we're starting with the Open Championship that kicks off this Thursday. I'm going to give you guys my picks for Royal Liverpool. So let's dive into it, shall we? So the links at Royal Liverpool should be a very interesting test. We've seen this course multiple times in the Open. And there's some specific players that I like in this tournament. And of course, as for the other two majors that we've done so far, or I've done so far, I'm going to pick you two favorites and one sleeper to watch out for this week to make some noise. So let's dive right into it, shall we? The first favorite that I like, and no, it's not Rory McIlroy, because that's unoriginal, and I don't think he's going to win it in the first place. The first one that I like, and it's going to be two guys with, I think, decent odds to win this thing. I am starting off with a Lynx magician, as some would say. I am going with Tommy Fleetwood. Now, Tommy Fleetwood has not won a major. He's been in contention for them, though. He's been in contention at the Players. I believe he's won a Players. And he's one of the best swings, I think, on tour. He's also played it on the European Tour, now named DP World Tour, for a long time. He's played decently in Scotland before, and he's made some noise at Opens before. I'm interested to see if he can get it done. Big thing to watch out for him, though, is going to be the putting. Because his putting, it's very inconsistent. So Tommy Fleetwood, I think, will for sure be named to watch out for this coming week at the Open. The second one, you already know I want to go with Xander again, but that's just not original anymore. So the second name I'm going to go with is a guy who's won the Open in the last over half decade now, and that is Jordan Spieth. Now, Jordan Spieth has made some noise in recent years, but he's made more noise, I think, for missing cuts as a heavy favorite at the U.S. Open. He wasn't that big of a contender at the U.S. Open. Somewhat, I don't even remember him being in the picture at the PGA. And his continuing frustration at the Masters goes on and on after he has won a green jacket before. But I think this could be the redemption arc for Jordan Spieth. He's made some noise at the Open before when he won it. The infamous go get the ball moment when he said to his caddy after making that big putt when he won the Open. Remember that moment? Could we see a repeat of that? What Jordan Spieth will we see? Will we see the confident, great ball striking, one of the best or even underrated short games on the PGA Tour? Will we see the one that nitpicks everything and tries to overthink each shot? That will be something to watch. And now a name that I don't think people they'll think it will go absolutely crazy and win the Open this week. And I'm scrolling through the list here. I'm kind of confused on why of course you have that people with bad odds, but I'm kind of interested why some of these guys have such low odds. And the one there's so much to pick from. You can go a guy, I want to pick a European person. I really do. But I think I should go with someone who's had very good experience on links courses. So why not? I'm just kidding. I'm not going with Rory. You thought I was going with Rory there. I'm going with Robert McIntyre, the Scotsman. And the young Scot, he's made some noise. He's at plus 6,600 odds. You can call him a sleeper. You can call him whatever you want. But I think Robert McIntyre, Bob McIntyre, some call him. I think he's set to make some noise. He's played very well at the Scottish Open, finished in second, only behind Rory McIlroy. Is he set to win a major in his home region? You can call that. I think that'll be a fun thing to watch out for the one of the few lefties in this field. I believe there's only 3 lefties. It's McIntyre, Brian Harman, and Phil Mickelson. But the Open will give us a test for a lot of players who will come out on top. Will a live player win again? as we saw at the PGA with Brooks Koepka? Or will we see maybe even a first-time winner of a major championship? Just to throw a name out there who I know hasn't won a major yet and can maybe make some noise as well. Actually, you know what? I'll give you one more name to watch out for as an underrated pick. Danny Willett. Now, Danny Willett hasn't made much noise in recent years, but plus 2,500 odds. Could he make some noise after winning the Masters, after defeating Jordan Spieth after he collapsed? I'm interested to see if he gets it done. But we'll go from the links to the pitch and in the CONCACAF Gold Cup. Now, next week on Monday, because we're going back to the Friday, Monday schedule since of how chaotic the last few days have been for me, of course, last week or so, of course. But as I was saying, we have the whole recap. We'll talk about the Open briefly in the beginning. It's going to be a stream, that episode. So it'll be a Monday stream. I'll let you guys know the time of it. It's going to probably be around 8 o'clock. We'll stream. I'm going to stream it, and I'll go through the Gold Cup more in depth or less in depth, depending on what people want. The Euros, AFCON, and of course the Open. That's what we talked about next Monday, just to give you what to look out for sure, upcoming from me. And of course, I'm not talking about F1. I'm going to be on the Starting Grid podcast on Saturday, Sunday, just as a reminder. Make sure you go follow those guys on Spotify and on Instagram. But now to the discussion at hand, and we have the Gold Cup final, and we have Mexico and Panama. Now, I talked about on Friday or Saturday when I talked about this, that you had to have picked Mexico, but the talent they have and the squad and the tactics and all that stuff, how Panama doesn't like to go offensive to win this cup final. Well, how did that turn out? Not great for Mexico until like the 88th minute, because Mexico only won 1-0 against Panama. And some stars really showed, and names you've never heard of before really showed out in this tournament. Let's name you a couple. The first one, I'm going to go with the goalkeeper here from the Panamanian national team in Orlando Mosquera. Now, Mosquera has a very interesting career. He is currently playing for Monagas, which I actually don't even know what league that's in. That's in the Comembol Libertadores. He's had 5 starts. He plays in the Venezuelan league. That's where he plays. And he made some noise at the Gold Cup. Oh, God. Saved that penalty against the United States. Won his team the match at, some would argue, against the USA. Making some killer saves. He's won his team multiple other matches when the offense was falling asleep. And he made some noise during this Gold Cup final, keeping Panama in the game when Mexico was really pushing forward, especially towards the end of both halves. I think Orlando Mosquera can maybe even make himself a move to a bigger league, because he really made some noise. Kind of like how Andre Blake did a couple of years ago. When the Jamaicans made the Gold Cup final, went far in the Gold Cup, competing strongly against teams like the United States and Mexico. So something to watch, one player to watch out for sure is Orlando Mosquera. And the other one was a substitute. And the reason I'm going to name him is because he had a big impact in this match and in the semifinal against the USA. Why? He scored the goal that extended the match in the 99th minute. And that player is Ivan Anderson. Now, you're probably wondering who the heck this guy is. He's a substitute for the Panamanian national team. Robbie, why are you talking about this dude? Arguably, well, one, he plays for the same club that his goalkeeper plays for. So could he be making his club some money in the end? Not only that, it's one of those moments where you have nothing to lose and you go out and just play. And Panama, a team that I thought was going to go out in the group stage, had a guy like Ivan Anderson when nothing was really working for the Panamanians. He came out in that final and gave them their 2 best chances of the whole match. Effectively. I don't believe he played for more than half an hour. Think about that for a moment. One player gave his team the 2 best chances and played for only half an hour. Could that be topped by somebody? Yeah, it did get topped by somebody. They absolutely got topped by someone. And that player was Santi Jimenez, who scored the winner for the Mexican national team. A great through ball by Luis Romo, touched well by Santi Jimenez, dribbles past the defender, like it kind of looked scuffed, like a scuffed shot, but it went past the goalkeeper Mosquera and went in the back of the net. Mexico wins the Gold Cup. I didn't think a 1-0 result would be on the cards, but that's how this match ended. And some may say the stats make Mexico think Mexico dominated this match. They really didn't, especially from around the 60th minute to the 75th. The moment this game changed was the moment, and I got to find his name. I don't remember off the top of my head, but I think it was Carrasquilla who got a yellow card and almost got sent off because he got a second yellow, and then VAR turned it over. That moment changed the whole match. Why? Because Mexico came out firing right afterwards. Tactical changes may have been made. Mexico comes out more attacking. Mexico scores the goal that wins the match on the counter, which really wasn't that. I mean, it was effective at points, but some goals you can argue were full counterattacks or partial counterattacks, well, however you want to word it. But the substitute of Santi Jimenez effectively won his team the match because he made that diagonal run. Luis Romo played the pass. You could say Luis Romo had a great impact on the match, and he did, to be fair. But Memo Ochoa made some big saves. The goalkeepers, I think, were the stars of the show until the goal was scored. That's for sure. But a lot of players that have unknowns in the world, in the realm of international ball, especially the two Panamanian players, Anderson and Mosquera, may have attracted some interest in them. We'll see. You still have a month and a half of the transfer window. Could these guys be making a move to maybe a league in CONCACAF, maybe a small European league? Who knows? Maybe they even stay in South, because they do play in South America. Maybe they make a move to the Brazilian league or Colombia. Who knows? Time will tell on that for sure. But time won't be telling on what will be happening with the running backs in the NFL. 3 of them didn't get a deal done before the franchise tag deadline. Now, I worded that very poorly. Not intentionally, of course. But effectively what happens were these 3 running backs, Saquon Barkley, Tony Pollard, Josh Jacobs. They had a of course the other players that were on the franchise tag had a deadline to sign new contracts. That was yesterday at 4 p.m. We saw some notable players get off the franchise tag. I believe Quinnen Williams I think Quinnen Williams was on that list. Evan Ingram, I know, was on that list from the Jaguars. He signed a 3-year deal, which was massive in value, which, I mean, that's Jacksonville at this point. Pay whoever you want. Some say that's how they roll, with paying whoever they want for a very inflated value. But this one hurts for me. And why? Because some of these dudes are the most talented players on their team and they get snubbed for money. It's greed. It's painful. It's idiotic. And it makes some teams look really bad. Let's start out with the boys in blue. One of the boys in blue, of course, from the Big Apple. That's the Giants. Now, Saquon Barkley did not get a deal done with the Giants. And I thought out of the 3 of them, this was the best player available to not have a deal done out of everyone that was not even signed. But Barkley said this perfectly. It is what it is. You had to imagine he had some other comments for this, for the situation that everyone's in. The running back field, that is. And the problem here is not with the running backs, the players themselves. That's not the main problem. It's the true change of the style of play that football is now. Now, granted, for some teams, the running game is very impactful. And if one of these big running backs go down, a whole offense can collapse. Look at the second half of the Jets without Breece Hall and how bad some of their offenses were. That just tells the story itself. Now look to another team that could possibly, I mean, you've seen the possible change of these great running backs. In not just the 3 that I mentioned already. Some of you know about the dilemma with Austin Eckler and the Chargers. That's just another one to name up. Who knows what's going to happen with Derrick Henry and the Titans in the future? You've seen great running backs get cut from their teams. Ezekiel Elliott, prime example of this. Maybe it's been for cap space. Dalvin Cook, another example. The problem is that these high-ranking executives think these running backs are such a short time, like limit of how long they can be in the league. I disagree with that. Why? We've seen this happen before with a great running back. Actually, let me rephrase that. We've seen great running backs, some, go out and not want to be paid, play for low values, and then these running backs are having money stolen away from them. That's what I'm trying to go. And an example I want to talk about for something that could happen to these running backs is Josh Jacobs, who I believe, I think a lot of people will believe, and it'll probably be official in a couple of weeks, is that he'll hold out training camp. And who knows how long he'll hold out for. Maybe all these running backs do it. But you have to think about this. This is the riskiest thing either any of these guys can do. Le'Veon Bell, perfect example. Le'Veon Bell, when he was at the Steelers, his last year with the Steelers, because he wasn't even there at all, he held out of his contract, did not want to sign the franchise tag, and then waited till he wanted to get the new deal done. I mean, how did that work out for him? He got the new deal with the Jets, and his career went on a downfall. He won a ring, true. Did he have any impact in that game? Not really. To think one of the better running backs of the mid-2010s could have gone on that much of a downfall that quickly. He was a former number one pick in fantasy leagues around 2018, 2019. Now I don't even know where he is. Think about how much that can change a running back's career. A move, a holdout, their whole trajectory can change. And that's why I think it's very risky that Josh Jacobs, who I thought would be the one that didn't get the deal done, because maybe you can argue he's inconsistent. Maybe you can argue a lot of things for Josh Jacobs. But I think the reason Jacobs is doing this is not because he doesn't want to get paid. No. Maybe he wants to get out of Vegas as a whole. And Vegas failed to capitalize on something. His trade value. I thought his trade value was probably the second highest behind Barkley's, if there was even a set trade value for him. I mean, I bet you'd have teams calling at the door, but the problem why you wouldn't trade him is Christian McCaffrey didn't get traded for a first-round pick. Would you want to see the second best offensive weapon for Jimmy Garoppolo get traded for a second-round pick? Do you really think the Raiders would do that? With how many weird decisions they've made over the years? Absolutely not. And now, they could possibly be losing their star for nothing. Failed to capitalize. You had one goal if you're the Raiders this year. Possibly replace two goals. Possibly replace Derek Carr, quarterback. Re-sign Jacobs. You have failed at both of them. You got a negative replacement for Carr and Jimmy G, who I think is much worse. And his stats will show he's much worse than Derek Carr. Could it be offensive schemes? Who knows? Who knows what the reasons can be? I mean, Derek Carr, play under Josh McDaniels must have been hell, because I don't think he's a very good head coach. I think a lot of people will agree with me on that one. And then the other one being Jacobs being failed to sign. Could people's jobs be on the line for this failure? I'm very interested to see what happens on that matter. And I'm very interested to see what Eli Jacobs or Barkley do. And the last one I mentioned briefly was Tony Pollard, who I don't know what the Cowboys are doing. Does anyone know what the Cowboys are doing? I don't know. At this point, do these teams even want to use a running back at this point? These teams are so reliant on their quarterbacks running for the running backs at this point. You can argue that. Ravens, perfect example. The Ravens have had such an injury-prone running back core that Lamar Jackson, I believe, has more rushing yards combined than any of them for over the last couple of seasons, for how injury-prone they've been. Same thing could happen with possibly multiple other teams. And while that does create a bigger risk for your quarterback, it takes the other position out of play entirely. But one key problem that could be for some of them, not these three in general, can you be versatile? I think that will hurt some running backs in the long term. That's a question you have to ask. But the impact that these running backs have on certain offenses will never be unnoticed. Saquon Barkley is a perfect example. Take Saquon Barkley out of that offense for the Giants last year. They're a 5-win team. You hate to see it, but they would be a 5-win team without Saquon Barkley. Josh Jacobs get taken out of that offense with the Raiders. How inconsistent they were. They're not even close to contending. Cowboys without Pollard. But Zeke, how he was last year, I don't think they maybe scratched the 7th seed. Even in a weak NFC. So at the end of the day, you have to value the players that you have on your roster. And Saquon Barkley not being re-signed as the second best weapon on a team, Josh Jacobs not being signed as the second best weapon on a team, Tony Pollard not being signed as the third best weapon on your team, second or third, is distasteful for me. It's just sour. And I'm interested to see how this impacts the future of the running back position. But we have to go next to one's future that will be, who knows how it gets turned out. And that is Carlos Alcaraz. And why the heck am I talking about a tennis player for the, 4th podcast in a row? 5th? This dude has won Wimbledon. Carlos Alcaraz has won Wimbledon in a 5-set thriller. Just some fun facts about this. Well, what has happened from this? Novak fails to get his 5th straight Wimbledon title. It's I believe the first time in almost 15 years that we've had a new winner, because it was the big 3 winning it all. Add a new name to that trophy. Add a player who can do maybe something like what Novak did, or what Rafa did, or what Roger did. Add that name that will remain world number 1, deserves to be world number 1. Add a guy with one of the most interesting tactics in the sport of tennis today, with his forehand drop shot. Wanting to come into the net, use his athleticism, he does it best. That's Carlos Alcaraz in a nutshell. He is ridiculous. You can go watch that highlight reel and want to watch it multiple more times for how insane some of the points were in this match. Now, going into the match itself, there's one problem that I have with this. And this is going on Novak here. I think his frustrations got to him, and that's why he lost. Get broken on a serve here and there, 5th set especially. That's how you lose. You get it to a 5th set. You win your opening set. You drop 2 in a row. You win the 4th, and you drop the 5th. Granted, this final was absolutely crazy. It went 5 hours long. I know some of my friends were able to watch this entire match, which is crazy. I wouldn't be able to do that. I watched the majority of the, I think, 3rd set and on, and I watched back the first 2 sets recently. But, a lot of questions can come out from this. When will not Roger, but Novak win Major 24? Where will it be? Could it be at the United States Open? Oh, wait a minute. The COVID rules. And I don't know how that's going to pan out this year. He's not been able to play the U.S. Open for the last couple of editions because of his failure to get the COVID vaccine. He got kicked out of Melbourne, Australia, almost went to prison for it. So can we see another name rise, make some noise, and maybe win their opening major, maybe their first career major, maybe their 3rd, like Alcaraz? Maybe make a big name for themselves under those New York City lights. Could we see someone in the upcoming weeks maybe really make a noise on the smaller tournaments, maybe in Atlanta, at Winston-Salem, in D.C., in Cincinnati? Who will be that name that wants to go after Novak, who can compete with Alcaraz? Alcaraz is young. There's some players that I really think they can compete. The question is, are they really competitive with Alcaraz? Is Alcaraz on a league of his own? Only one way to find out. But unfortunately, we won't find that answer out for around another 40 days or so when the US Open comes back. But unfortunately for us, that's another debate for another episode, because that is all the time we have for today. Thank you so much, guys. Thank you guys so much for watching. It's been awesome to have done these first 20 episodes for you guys today. And of course, for the last 2 months. So upcoming, we have the podcast returns for Friday. And then I'll be on another podcast, and I'll talk about that on Monday when when I do the recaps of the soccer, what happened around the world, and of course, recapping the Open. Well, of course, we'll talk about the Open. I'll talk about the Open on Friday, but a lot more to talk about. But I want to hear from you guys. What topics do you guys want to hear? Because I know some may not be interested in some of the stuff that I talk about. That's okay. But I want to hear from you guys so I can improve this show. So drop a comment, drop a DM, hit me up at @rbasel_11 on Instagram. Do however you can communicate to me, because I'm all ears. But no, I don't have time, because that's all we have for today. Thank you guys so much for watching once again. For now, I'm Robbie Basel, signing off. I'll see you guys Friday.